TYFU.
Hello, Beth, you beautiful specimen.
Hello, Marilla. You.
Okay, all right. If you don't
really
have something right away,
smart,
all right, that's enough.
Gorgeous lady.
Don't patronize
who
me.
Intimidates me with your wits,
My effusive language
and compliments.
Anyway,
How
good
you
to
doing?
see you.
Yep, you too. You went to Canada.
I did. I would prefer to not talk about it.
Okay.
Not really. I just wanted to say a boot.
Well played.
Well played. All right, Beth. So before we get into it, I want to know, now that we have launched and we have podcasts out in the world, how does it feel to be a celebrity?
I don't know if we can call ourselves celebrities yet. Maybe next week after this episode.
I feel like people are shouting at you in the streets.
That has happened. It was
me.
you. But that was fun to be recognized by you.
Well,
But we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the first episode and the whole concept, which has been really exciting. People have been commenting on your Instagram posts, the TYFU Instagram, with their own stories, which we love.
Which was so exciting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got our first little formal story on our Facebook, and we got a lot of messages on our Instagram. We got a lot of response to our polls. So that has been so exciting to see that you guys are liking it.
Yes. And we want to use your stories on future episodes too. So definitely, I hope people will find the website, tyfupod.com, and give us some feedback on the episodes so far, write in suggestions for future episodes, and we will hopefully incorporate them into future episodes.
Yeah. And if you haven't listened to any of these and you're just popping in, then stop what you're doing and go back and listen to the trailer, and then listen to episode 0, and then listen to 1, and then come back to this.
Sounds good.
All right. So here we go. The first time I've ever been able to open the envelope.
Because I hog the envelopes. I do. What do you got?
Savoring the moment. Ooh. How was that?
It's empowering, isn't it?
It is.
Yep.
All right. So our prompt for the day, what we are chatting about, is advertising in our small businesses. You know it. You love it.
I hate it.
I hate it too.
Actually, I hate it.
I actually don't hate it. I love marketing. I don't know if that counts. I love marketing. I hate advertising. Is there a difference there? Is that the same thing?
Is marketing the parent of advertising?
Maybe so. So I think of marketing as coming up with the content to show people what your business is all about, how you talk about it, what it looks like, the branding. And I think of advertising as deciding where you're going to put that picture of the apple that you're selling. Are you going to put it in the mailbox? Are you going to put it on the television? Are you going to put it on the radio? What do you want to do with that?
How do you decide?
That's why we're here. What do you do? You have a lot more experience because your business is older than mine in this arena. I find that it's a very overwhelming and hard to quantify field. And for a new baby business owner, I think it's hard to navigate. And I think it's really hard to part with your hard-earned dollars and decide where you're going to gamble. It feels like a gamble to me.
And also, every time you're making this decision, you're encountering a salesperson. And the salesperson is telling you certain numbers. And as we were tearing this open and I got this little pit in my stomach, I'm thinking about how stupid I feel about advertising, because even after all these years, it's still hard to know what decision to make, and it's all so expensive, and the salespeople are always telling you something and you don't know if you can trust them or not.
Well, right. I think for me, starting a business in the age of social media has been exciting in a lot of ways, because when you post something on social media, you can see a lot of metrics. Some of them are false, but if you spend the time, you can actually get pretty true reflections of how your post is doing. So Personally, I find in the last 4 years of me doing business, I have put a lot of time and effort into social media marketing because I can see metrics that are generated by a computer, not a salesman standing in front of me. I don't have to trust anybody, and I can actually measure that. I mean, I guess I have to trust Mark Zuckerberg, but it's easier to measure when you're working with social media, and as opposed to when the local radio salesman comes in and tells you that you're missing out on big money because you're not spending $500 a month on 5 minutes of airtime. I've had a hard time remaining open to those kind of avenues like radio, television, newspaper.
But you have done at least some radio advertising, I think. Is that right?
I have. And I'm thinking about a particular story. Recently, we did a rebrand, as you all know. And to get the new name into people's ears, we decided we were going to run stuff for a year on the local radio stations. And so we got in touch with a guy who was one of the sales reps for the station, and we set up for a year, and in 3 months we checked in, and I wasn't super impressed with the results. And in 6 months we checked in, I wasn't super impressed with the results. And at the end of the year, I still wasn't super impressed with the results. And we had...
You mean based on your sales growth?
Based on my sales growth, based on asking customers, hey, how'd you hear about us? And also based on the customers that would come into my door and be like, hey, I heard about this place on the radio. I'm so curious. And they'd come in and they'd do a once over, and then they'd like, yeah, it's not really my thing. I was just curious. And I'm like, okay, is that my fault as a salesman that I didn't close that sale? Or is it just that
the
radio isn't putting my advertising to the right target audience?
Yes.
And then I get frustrated because I'm like, okay, I feel like I could pick my target audience better. And then I'm running the radio station, and then that's not my job. And it's just spirals out of control. And anyway, long story short, I finished that round. It wasn't super profitable for us, so we decided not to renew our contract. And I thought it was amicable. And I told the guy we're not renewing. And I said, if anything changes, we will call you right away. And he told me, well, no offense, but if you call me, I might not take you back.
Yes.
And in that moment, I was like, wait, I'm breaking up with you. You're not breaking up with me.
Well, yeah.
Like, wait a minute. So I don't know. I haven't called them back. I don't know where we stand.
Well, why would you? He's not going to take you back.
My ex and I are not
done with you.
We're not on good terms.
Yeah.
But that's one of my advertising stories that I had through the years. Every now and again, I'll like put something in the paper, but it was hard to work with that medium because it was hard to measure it outside of what my rep was just telling me to trust.
Yeah, and I know that's expensive. I know radio advertising is expensive. I mean, it's all expensive.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the most recently, I spent some thousands of dollars on a print ad.
Ooh.
And
does it hurt to think about that?
I know.
Okay.
I'm just taking some deep breaths and putting my feet on the floor, and then I'm going to tell you the story.
Yep. Go ahead.
Of course, part of the print, I don't have time and I'm not good at designing my own ads, right? But part of the service was they're going to design the ad for me. So I get the proof, and all I notice in the proof initially is this giant zip code, which is not the right zip code.
What?
But also, why a zip code? So I write back to the ad rep, and I'm like, this is the wrong zip code. But why are we having a zip code?
For 1 and 2.
Because it's like, I've got like exactly 2 by 2 inches here. So I don't know why the zip code and the wrong zip code is the most prominent thing in this ad.
Right.
So I suggest, my first response is, that's the wrong zip code. My second message to them is, let's just get rid of all that.
Yeah.
So the next proof comes to me. And when I said, let's just get rid of all that, apparently they thought I meant, let's get rid of the name of the business, the street address, the city, and the
Oh
zip code.
my God.
So all that's left is the tagline. It was a Christmas ad, by the way. So it was unique gifts for everyone on your list, which is the
Okay.
exact line that, I don't know, 20,000 businesses
have also
saying.
used. Oh my God.
So I didn't feel like it was particularly creative or
right.
inspirational.
Right.
So we arrived at an ad that I can't say happy with, but satisfied with. And we ran it. But I was frustrated because I feel like I could have, like with the time I spent going back and forth with
That's
it.
what I was just going to say.
I could have just done it myself in the first place. So did I get value for money? I'm not happy to tell you, or maybe I'm happy to tell you, that that's been my most successful ad in ages.
Oh,
I can't
thank
tell you, like,
goodness.
it's months later and people are still saying, oh, I saw your ad in
Oh, thank
this
goodness.
publication.
Thank goodness.
They're still coming back.
I don't know if this is this a success story or is it
I
a
don't know.
frustration story?
I don't know. It's both. It's both because that's what
Yeah.
advertising is.
Oh, that oh my God. That's
Right?
That's
Apparently we're
deep.
doing something right because people are coming into the store.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it remains frustrating and enigmatic. And
And
I
it
don't know how to
feels-
do it right. And I feel so stupid about it still after all these years.
Yeah, and maybe if nothing else, for you, the listener, you might feel reassured in knowing that you're not alone if you feel like you have no idea what you're doing with your advertising budget, because we all say, okay, here's our budget. We have this much money for advertising. Now what? And that's a question that my husband and I have all the time. Joe and I say all the time, I'm like, we have this much money for advertising. And go. And so, yeah,
It feels like the casino, doesn't it?
it does feel like the casino. And there's nothing I hate more. I like to micromanage. I like to, I'm very bossy, but I like to be in charge of the way things look. But I also want to believe you when you come in and tell me that if I give you $1,000, you're going to come to me with a beautifully designed ad that you've actually spent time
Yeah.
learning about my business and my brand.
Unique gifts for everyone on your list.
And so, yeah, I don't want to say, here's my money, do something beautiful, and then have them send it to you and be like, okay, let me pause my work day so that I can do this myself anyway, and then still give you the money.
The same
It's
amount of money, yeah.
frustrating.
Yep.
And through the years, have you had a eureka moment with advertising? Because I'd love to know. But I think my biggest one has been social media.
Yeah. I haven't had a eureka moment. I think, if anything, I've just learned what not to do. Like,
Yeah.
well, that was a fail. That was a fail. That was a fail. That was a fail. I'll tell you one fail that happened to me many years ago. Have you ever heard of something called the Yellow Pages, Marilla?
Oh, yes.
It was
I
probably-
do. Every now and again, one would be tossed, and all the children would run out and grab it, and then they disappeared one day.
Yes, it's a thing of the past. It's a mythical advertising method from many years ago when I first started in business. That was, I think, the primary way of finding businesses. Like, if you wanted to find a bookstore, then you would look in the Yellow Pages, right? Because there wasn't the Google.
Right.
So one year I was contacted by the Yellow Pages sales representative, and he is like, do you want to run your ad? And I said, yep, same ad as last year. No changes. This was a couple $100, I think, but it was also the 1800s.
That's true. So it was equal to $2,000
Right.
in the day of our Lord.
So the phone book comes out, and for some reason I looked at it. You know, they always send you a proof. So I approved the proof, and the phone book comes out, and a couple of key changes were made to the ad.
Oh, man.
And one of the key changes was that hardcover books was changed to hardcore books.
Oh, my God.
And that's a very different thing.
Hardcore books.
So I definitely had some phone calls. Well, I remember one guy in particular called up. He's like, does hardcore mean what I think it means? And I was like, no, it does not mean what you think it means. But that was in there for a year, It was
And
like,
they just never bought, like, you
I
can't do
did
anything
get reimbursed, believe me, but it was a fight. Like, it was
my
a fight.
God.
And so that was how the bookstore
Hardcore
looked
books.
for a year.
But here's the question.
Yes, go ahead.
How was that for business? And have you since added hardcore books to your inventory?
Actually, that was probably the biggest missed opportunity of my business life, right?
Yeah.
It could have been a sign from the universe that I was supposed to head in a different direction. But
dang. Yeah. That's wild. I can't say I have anything that exciting. Usually for me, it's just I have a store where you refill jars, and a lot of people don't understand the concept. So most of the time when I have someone writing an ad for me, it's like a swing and a miss. It's like I got to go in and be like, no, it's not a recycling center. It's not a trash service. It's not, I don't know. There's like a million ways you could misinterpret it. And so I have that kind of chore work to do when someone approaches me to advertise.
Well, you're making me realize something all over again, and it's that both you and I have unique businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my business is a eclectic combination of products and services
Right.
that's hard to communicate in, 4 lines and 2x2 space.
Yeah, and on one hand, you have people say, well, maybe that means you need to focus more on one thing. But we are doing what we're doing because we're passionate about offering this, and we think it's a need in our community, and it is because we're doing successful business. And it's just frustrating when like you and I put the work in to do this hard to describe, hard to define business, and then other people don't want to put the work in to
help us communicate
us communicate that.
What you're saying to me makes me think, well, we should have taken an advertising course. We should have taken a marketing course. But actually, that's what I am paying other people to do. Right? That's what I pay you for.
Right.
For your advertising knowledge, for your marketing knowledge.
Right.
I mean, you and I can only do so much, which is everything.
Which is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying is there's no hope. You have to do it all yourself. And
every time we sit down together, I think we should just probably close.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of work. You're going to be exhausted. And no, I think really the takeaway is, even though you have to do it, a lot of it yourself, it is worth it if you do put the time in to communicate and get to know your customer and talk to your customer about how unique your business is. And for me, that's been social media. For someone else, maybe that's radio. But it's worth it if you can stick with it, because sometimes there is an ad with a zip code that does really well for you.
I'm actually I have 2 pieces of advertising advice that I've heard over the years coming to mind simultaneously.
Oh my goodness.
I'll tell you the one that I heard that I most disagree with, and then I'll tell you the one that I heard that I most agree with. They're just coming at me right now.
I love this.
Okay. So the first one that I kind of disagree with is an older gentleman who came into my store one day, and we were talking about business. He also ran a business for many years, and he was giving me some advice. And he was telling me that since it's women who do the shopping, you gotta get into the woman's psyche. And he knows women very well because he's married to one.
Yeah, duh.
And he told me what she loves, and that's a coupon.
Yes.
Coupon. And he says that if I wanted to do my business a favor, I would just have coupons in a local newspaper and stuff like that. I didn't follow that advice.
Easy
and maybe
peasy, Beth.
Had I followed that advice, I'd be I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you. I'd be kicking back in my mansion.
God, these old guys, yeah, they really
well,
need
he does
to be
have
listened to
decades of experience.
I know, my God.
Yes. So I didn't follow his advice. I didn't like that advice, and I didn't follow it.
Right, trust your gut.
Another piece of advice that I heard that I do sometimes follow is I am almost my target audience, and you are your target audience in a way. Like, our businesses are so much a reflection of who we are that the best place to advertise for us is where we would see our ad.
Absolutely.
Right? And for you, it's social media. For me, it's probably social media.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to make an investment, it's where we and people like us are going to be
Spending their time.
running into our ad. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. And I think, I think finding the places where we spend our time, and also, I hate to say it, but email lists. God damn it.
That's right.
I hate emails, but they do work pretty well for me too.
Oh, okay. Because I've thought about collecting those emails.
You should. I hate it. I mean, to my email list, I love you all, but I hate writing the emails. It just takes a lot of time. Talking about time investment, it takes a lot of time, but it is a great way to communicate, and you don't have to listen to any salesman. You're just writing an email to people. So email lists are great.
All right. Anything else on advertising, or have we pretty much covered it?
Well, I, for one, do know somebody who knows a little something about radio advertising and advertising in general, because I know somebody who has sold some radio advertising in his life.
It's one of those salesmen.
Right here in our studio.
One of those salesmen has been lurking
in
this
the
whole
shadows.
It's our producer, Kelly Walker.
Too bad for Kelly Walker.
You know, it's been interesting because people who know me in Geneva know me primarily as an on-air personality in public radio, know me from the podcast that I did in Geneva back in the day, live from Linden. But I had a whole career in public radio pursuing corporate support, but also I did sell commercial advertising. So it's been interesting, especially to listen to your stories about sales.
Me trash talking sales.
No, it's like Kelly Walker has a dark side
Oh,
that we didn't
no.
even realize. But maybe he can actually lend some insight and tell us some things that we don't know.
That's true.
Well, one of the things that I did find instantly interesting is the question of credibility and expertise, because I'm here to tell you, especially on a local level and especially in a smaller media market like we're in, most of the people, when they are initially hired to sell radio, have no background in radio whatsoever. They weren't programmers. They weren't on-air personalities. I mean, they frequently have come from other sales jobs. And I'm talking about selling insurance and selling all kinds of other services. So you don't know if the person walking in the door really knows all that much about how radio works or whether the station has trained them.
So what you're telling me is that this is vindicating for me, because maybe he didn't know his numbers. Maybe he was just making it up. I have no idea.
Look, you can have the best numbers in the world. What really counts is the number of people, as you said, Marilla, who walk in the door and say, I heard your spot.
Yeah. And if that person is your ideal customer, or if they were just like, wow, I've never heard of something like that before, I just want to see it. Like, you might go to the zoo and go look at the tigers, but that's not your favorite animal. You're not there for the tigers. You might be an elephant person all the way. So, like, I feel like some of that radio ad space goes into ears. Like, if I have elephants in my store, some tiger people come in just out of curiosity, but they don't.
Yeah,
buy
but each
anything.
radio station is supposed to know what their demographic is.
Yes, that's exactly right. Your story of somebody coming in and saying, wow, I heard about this on the radio. When you reached people. Not really my thing. Have a nice day. You didn't reach the right people.
The right one, yeah.
And that was a big deal in my career, especially in public radio when we deal what we call underwriting, because as non-commercial stations, we literally can't carry advertisements. It was really interesting working opposite commercial radio because our demographic, one, is quite different. And two, one thing about the public radio audience, they have this tendency to tune in their favorite public radio station and then, as we used to say in the business, rip the knob off. That's like we're the one radio station they listen to.
Yeah.
And so if your business matched well with it, we kind of had some businesses all to ourselves in that respect. You know, we could have a talk station, an AM talk station, come in and say, I'm great for your audience, but no, maybe not. You know, it's and you're right. The salesperson should know that, but the salesperson's working on a commission for a boss who says, I just need you to bring in sales.
Right.
I don't care. I mean, this is a gross oversimplification because I haven't met the manager in question, but I've certainly known plenty who don't care about whether it's a fit. They just want that business on the air.
And on the books, you know?
Yeah.
They want it, they want to prove it. And right, this is not to say that, you know, all whom I have dealt with are crooks, but it is hard to, when you feel like you don't know if this person is a radio buff. Like this person that I interacted with was a salesman in a whole different industry and a whole different kind of world, and then came to radio. So I had a hard. It felt like me going and selling radio. Like, I don't know. Kelly's been doing this for years. He likes all the numbers and the statistics and things like that, as we are well aware.
Kelly, what do you think about the idea that you should advertise where you see the ad or hear the ad yourself? And do you think that would prevent, say, Marilla and I or another business owner from attracting new customers if we only advertise in the places that we feel comfortable or we feel like our own eyes or ears are going to be?
That's a really great question, because in the end, you should know your customer as well as you hope your radio salesperson knows their listener. And so if these are the places, like if you find yourself talking to a customer and they say, oh, I heard this great story on NPR. Well, now you've got an idea of where they might be listening.
Yeah.
Right.
If they are carrying a copy of a local magazine or newspaper when they walk in, you've got an idea of something that they're doing. And so that can be really helpful too, of even just
He's
asking.
a detective
It's
as
a little
well
Nancy,
as a podcaster.
a little Nancy Drew action over
really
here.
Sherlocky.
I mean, one of the things that we were really gratified when we got back our first numbers for the first 2 episodes of the podcast is that the audience, as reported by some of the sources we have for this medium, really reflected kind of what we expected out of the audience. And that's going to have an impact on who we have as guests. And when we do talk to people about potentially advertising on the podcast, because that's something we'll look into, because I think we can be valuable for that. I mean, one nice thing about podcasts is it tends to be really targeted. People don't stumble into listening to a podcast. I was just walking along and all of a sudden I found myself accidentally listening to a podcast. Are not the words we ever hear from anybody.
Well, I was going to say, I think we're coming around the mountain here to some good advice. It's always smart to have a couple good questions for them ready. It's always smart, even though none of us need extra work as business owners. It's smart to have a couple good questions for those advertisers, or do a little sleuthing work.
Suss it out a little bit.
Suss it out a little bit, and don't just take. You don't have to just take their word for it. You can trust your gut a little bit and say, okay, well, where's that coming from?
And something that you talked about that I think was so important was, that's only half the battle, is figuring out where to be in front of people. Then there's the whole question of creative.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I think that you both have a really good visual sense, but you've never had to write a radio commercial. If your person doesn't come from a radio background, chances are they haven't written very many radio commercials. And they may well say to you, so I've got this team back at the station that's going to write a great spot for you. I have also been the team back at the station, and let me tell you, it's 2 or 3 guys, frequently guys, who are on the air. They're not the main jocks, but I was a swing jock on this commercial station. And because we were the ones who knew how to produce audio, they'd come back with a handful of bullet points and say, write me a spot. And we'd crank out 30 seconds a copy and grab we had a stock music library to read on top of it, and everybody was assigned a certain number of commercials to read. This was not like Super Bowl level advertising creative. And I'm not saying I haven't produced some good commercials. I like commercials. I think commercials can be fun and entertaining and interesting, and we wouldn't have the phenomenon of Super Bowl commercials if people didn't like them.
Just wait till you hear our commercials for this podcast. They're going to blow your socks off.
But, the number of spots that I really was able to put my heart and soul into versus the number of spots that I just pretty much was knocking out 90 words and a quick read.
Right.
That's a big deal, too. What's funny is that locally, we all know somebody who is a radio personality, Jim Schreck. Mm-hmm. Jim takes commercial production more seriously than any 10 people I've ever met. And he's
been really happy
great
with my
producer.
Commercials.
He's a great guy. He loves sound. We love Jim. We love his
Jim.
work.
Jim, we love you.
But not everybody has that. Not every radio station has that. And not every radio commercial goes through Jim because he can't do it all.
Right.
So, creative is huge. In the end, you're talking about people who are trying to make a livelihood, have got pressure on them from, the boss.
For sure.
Who maybe have never done this before. And they've been given, a couple of articles, maybe sent to a couple of once upon a time seminars, now webinars about how to write effective copy. And it's a real, it's real random. It's really, really random.
And it sounds like if you're working with a human being that's working on your copy and your ads, it's worth shopping around to find the person that's really interested in your business and willing to understand it.
Yeah.
And take the time to do what Jim does and have fun with it and get creative and
I think this
tailor
is
it.
key, though, is like establishing that the salesperson and the creative team are not the same people.
It's true.
Right?
Or whether they are.
Or
if
yes,
they are.
occasionally maybe they are, but not at the newspaper.
Right.
Not at the radio station, probably not at the television station. Like there's probably a lot of, maybe the key would be, I want to speak directly. Because oftentimes you're working
team.
through the salesperson and you don't actually have a conversation with the creative.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like anything else, it doesn't ever hurt to ask.
Right. That's
It
what
really
it seems
never
like we're
hurts
getting
to
out of
ask,
that.
to just say to your salesperson, hey, could I talk to the person who's going to voice and produce this a little bit? Maybe have them come by the shop and talk to me. They may not want that, but I mean, again, who's available in the area and, in fact, in the region probably, because, again, it's a small market. It's not like there are lots and lots of people doing this.
Yeah.
And so, it never hurts to ask.
And if you are a listener who's in a bigger market, you probably have even more opportunities to chase down
and shop around
the spot that's really going to treat your business right.
And, and in the end, it's the reason that people hire ad agencies.
Let's just do that, Beth. We figured it out.
Start an agency. We're going to start an ad agency.
Yeah, scrap this. Scrap this
Podcast.
This has been fun, guys.
That?
But
never mind.
Actually, we have a better idea.
Because yes, I miss advertising sales so very, very much.
We can tell.
But you do miss that creative about building the commercials, though.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I did like making spots. I mean, I like hearing really good spots.
Well, Kelly Walker.
Oh, thanks for being our guest and our producer.
Well, you are very welcome.
Didn't
and
see that coming, but hey.
Thanks for having me as your producer. I have been enjoying this immensely.
All right. We appreciate you.
Yeah, always learning. We're always learning from Kelly.
Too bad.
Too bad for us. I mean, no.
No,
too bad for Kelly Walker.
We chat about the biz, it is the way it is. Thank you for understanding.
We sincerely thank you for understanding. Please visit us at tyfupod.com to learn more about the show, share prompt ideas, or tell us about your own small business experiences. We may include your story in a future episode. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at tyfupod or on tyfupod.com. Our theme song was composed by Marilla Gonzalez. The show is produced by Kelly Walker. Too bad for Kelly Walker.